no shadow you won't light, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, but still I'm bound to leave the 99. And I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah.
Thank you. You may all have a seat. Take a moment just to bow your heads and pray with me. Lord, today we pray that you teach us to be more like you, to rest when we need to rest, and that we take that, whether Sabbath for you is Sunday or Saturday or Tuesday, it doesn't matter, but that we pray that we are taking that time to give you that attention, to meet you where you are. We have to show up so that we can find you. And in order to do that, we have to make space. We have to make room for you. And so I pray for all of us that we continue to do that through the week. Amen.
Well, good morning. Someday there it is. Let there be light, right? My name is Michael Scott, and I want to thank you for being here this morning. Now, how many of you have ever seen a sloth in real life? Have you? Man, that's a lot of you. My wife and I had the awesome opportunity to be able to see a sloth in person. Now, we were in Nicaragua. We've been in Nicaragua about 3 different times. We do some mission work down there as a church. We do some work. Now, they've been in like a civil unrest for the last 7 or 8 years. But we used to go down once a year, and we built villages and houses and community centers and stuff like that. But every day we would, so we flew into Matagalpa, and we drive into Managua, and every day we'd drive into villages, and we'd have these like 12 and 15 passenger vans. And so we drive into these very remote villages with like stick and mud huts, okay? So as we're driving in, and the streets, the roads, I should say, were very rough, okay? And so it took us a long time, like 2 hours to get to a village, and about 2 hours to get back. And so we'd rush in, we'd work all day, we'd build houses, and we'd meet with people, and we'd do stuff, and then we'd rush back home because we needed to be back to our hotel where it was not as safer, let's just say it like that. It was safer back at our hotel because it wasn't always safe in the villages in the evenings. And so it's one of those times we're on our way back and we're driving in this 12 passenger van. There's 2 or 3 vans, and we're driving along the streets, and out to the side we see an animal, and somebody yells, "Sloth!" And so the van stops and we all pull over and we get out, And there's this sloth. Now, if you've ever seen a sloth in person, it is the most awkward thing in the world, right? Because it doesn't look real. It looks like it's a robot, like just slowly moving. And everybody got out of the van. There must have been probably 20 or 25 of us. We all got out of the van, and we're just watching it. It's just on the side of the road, like you see a raccoon or an armadillo around here somewhere. And it's on the side of the road, and it's just moving so slow. And as we're watching it, everybody just stood there. We stood there for like 15 minutes watching this thing, and then it slowly started to climb this tree. And it was this beautiful thing, and it reminded us that sometimes you have to slow down in order to observe the beauty that's all around you. Now, we've been talking about that here during the month of August. We've been talking about slowing down, and specifically slowing down so that we can be present. Now, if you're like me, I have this tendency to go, 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 go. Anybody else? Anybody else a bunch of goers? I'm an Enneagram 3, and so doing things and achieving things makes me feel valuable, and it makes me feel like I have worth, and so I like to go and do a lot. And I struggle with this. And so when I'm standing up here having these conversations with you, it's not because I have this figured out. I'm standing up here having these conversations with you because I'm struggling with it just like many of you are. And I think it's a cultural thing where we struggle with this idea of slowing down. And so this is loosely based on a book from John Ortberg called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I read it in preparation for this. And in the book, he makes the argument. He says, in the 70s, they came up with this term, and it was called hurried sickness. And it's a term they gave to cardiac patients who have a lot of things in common. And he lists out several things of which these people who were having heart conditions that were having a hard time slowing down. It was affecting their health, and they were having heart attacks and strokes. And so they came up with this term, hurried sickness. And I don't know about you, but I have hurried sickness. And here's some of the symptoms. If you find yourself in a grocery store or in a retail store moving from one checkout lane to the next one because you think that line is shorter, maybe you have hurried sickness. How many of you count cars in front of you and switch lanes when you're driving? Anybody? Nobody else does that? I'm the only one. Okay. Multitasking to the point of forgetting the tasks. If your irritability, hypersensitivity, restlessness, workaholism, nonstop activity, emotional numbness, lack of out-of-order priorities, lack of care for your body, escapist behaviors, right? This is where we get into the behaviors of addiction, and I'll make the argument that all of us have addiction. Some of us just don't know what those are. And maybe slippage of spiritual disciplines and isolation. Now, these are all symptoms of hurried sickness. And I think we struggle with this. Now, in the Christian faith, in our tradition, we have an antidote for hurried sickness. And we call it Shabbat, that's the Jewish word, or Sabbath. And this month, our spiritual practice, the thing that we're trying to make a difference in our communities, is that I've challenged all of us to start participating in celebrating Sabbath. Now, if you're here, hopefully you know what that means. If you don't, it's the fourth commandment, right? There's the top 10 that God gives us. Don't steal, don't cheat, don't lie, and all those things. But the number 4 one is that we should observe the Sabbath and keep it holy. And it says that we're not to work. Our partners aren't to work. Our children aren't to work. The people that work for us aren't supposed to work. Even our animals aren't supposed to work. The immigrant's not supposed to work. That's specifically listed out. And so in this month of celebrating or participating in Sabbath, it's one of those things that we think Sabbath just means rest. But really Sabbath means to take a step back, to observe, to recharge, to reclaim who we are. And probably one of the greatest things Sabbath is, that is in the Bible, that invites us into, is that we remember. Now for the Jews, they were remembering that they were slaves once in Egypt. And so God says, remember, you were slaves at one point in time, and now you are free. So when you observe Sabbath, when you're recharging, remember that you have freedom. And the same thing applies to us. We are slaves to different things in our lives, whether it's our jobs or our debt, or you can list the thing out. We all have something that we're a slave to. And so to participate in Sabbath or Shabbat, or to remember that, to observe that, is to remind ourselves that we're a part of something that's greater than ourselves. We call that thing God, or the Holy Spirit, or a community. There's a lot of different ways to define that. But Sabbath is the remembering of that. Sometimes we just think of it as rest and getting away and not doing anything. That's definitely part of it. But the more important part is that we are remembering something, that we're doing something intentional with our time to recharge. This is why the Sabbath starts on the evening See, Sabbath doesn't start in the middle of the day or in the morning. Sabbath starts in the evening. So we are to eat dinner together, to sit around a table, to have conversation, to rest, and then get up on the next day. So when in the story of creation, when God's creating, right, we see the story, and the first evening and the day were the first day. And that's because I believe our God tells us that rest and rejuvenation is more important than producing the things that we do. Now, if you're like me, that's a hard thing to do. It's very hard. And so I constantly find myself in a state of mind where I am not resting, I'm not recharging, I'm constantly moving and going. Now, I love it, but also it gets to me sometimes. And it's a struggle. Today I want to focus on how can we live our lives in such a way, maybe in a simpler way than we've been accustomed to. Now, in my life, I'm always looking at other people, right? One of my strengths, if you ever take out strength finders, I'm a communicator, I'm positivity, I'm an activator. One of my top 5 strengths is competition. Now, some of you say, competition, how's that a strength? Well, I like to be competitive, I do like to win, but the downside of that is I'm constantly looking at other people and comparing myself. Does anybody else do that? You ever compare yourself to other people? It's too easy. Right? We can just get on social media and we look at the people like, oh, their life is so great. And I'm like, I know you. I don't really think your life is that great. You ever do that? Well, we do, right? And so, but I'm constantly comparing myself to other people, and it's a struggle I have. And I think sometimes in our life, it's important that we slow down and that we try to simplify our life instead of always making it complicated. And so, in his book, he has several things that I thought were interesting of ways in which we can simplify and slow down our lives. Now, I'm reading these this week, and actually I was listening to it, because when I drive a lot, and so I have Audible, and I'm listening to all of these things that he's saying, and at least 4 or 5 times I stopped my phone, and I almost threw my phone out the window. You ever read a book? You ever do that? You ever read a book, you're like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Why? I'm not going to do this. So just know, I want to read these, and you're like, this is ridiculous, and I agree with you. But we have to have something that we're trying to achieve, something to aspire to, and I think maybe some of these are a good thing. So here's what he says. He says, drive the speed limit. Does anybody drive the speed limit? Who do speed limit followers around here? So, you do? Good for you. I do not. I'm that person. If I'm in the city, it's 5 over, right? This is standard rule of 5. If I'm on the highway, I can probably push it to 7 or 8. Do you do this? Some of you do 10. That's risky, I'm just saying. But I can't drive anywhere without pushing the speed. He's like, just like follow the rules. Now, I struggle with rules. I think Jesus struggled with rules. Some people don't like when I say that, but I think it's true. I think, at least as we come to know them, right? I think Jesus was a rule follower, but he was also a rule breaker. And so, for me, I'm like, it's a big deal. I just drive 5 over. But he's like, listen, it's one of those things where if you could just intentionally try to do something, it's not about the speed limit. It's about programming our minds and our hearts and our brains to slow down. So he says, first of all, try to drive the speed limit. I tried this week. I don't know if I did it, but I tried. And he says, get into the slow lane. How many of you intentionally get into the slow lane? Man, we got a rule follower right here. I can see your hand going over and over again. I never drive in a slow. I'm always passing somebody, okay? Come to a full stop. Now, I'm guilty of this one too. It's like, so my dad, when I was growing up, we always had station wagons. And we would be like 6, 7 of us in the car, and the oldest of 5. So we'd be driving along, and he'd be driving, and he never stopped. And I don't know why, but he called it a California stop. Anybody else's dad do that? Like, it's a, what?
California roll.
California roll, yeah. I guess in California they're really busy, or they like sushi. I'm not sure which one that is. But he says, come to a full stop. Don't text and drive. I'm pretty good about that most of the time. Sometimes I'll talk to my phone. Show up 10 minutes early. Now, I do like to do that. I hate being late. I can't stand to be late. Any people show up early? And he says show up early so that you're not just rushed all the time, right? To me, if I wasn't 10 minutes early, I was taught as a young man that I was late. So 10 minutes early was a must. Now, this next one I'm not good at. Go to the longest checkout line. Thank you. Whoever said that? Oh, right? Like, that's not, why would you do that? But again, we're trying to do things, little simple things in our life that can remind us to slow down. I went to the store yesterday, and I didn't choose the shortest checkout line. I did it on purpose. And I had so much anxiety. just standing there in line. I'm like, I could be over there, right? I mean, I know it's ridiculous, but I do it. These little tools that maybe we can use. He says, turn your smartphone into a dumb phone, right? Or get a flip phone. And what he means by that is like parent your phone, right? So there's things you can do on your phone. So my phone, and I do this, from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m., my phone has a sleep mode. And so you can't get a hold of me. I think if you call twice, maybe it'll go out of sleep mode. But my notifications don't go off. You can't text me anything between those 8 hours. Even though I'm probably not sleeping those full 8 hours, I at least do that. So he encourages that. He says, keep your phone off until after you have your quiet time in the morning. How many of you have quiet time in the morning? Some of you do. I didn't used to during COVID. I found it. Now next week, we'll get to this later, but next week we're going to have somebody join us. Miss Allison's going to join us, and we're going to do a guided meditation and some quiet time. And I'll show you exactly what she does and exactly what I try to do every single morning. But he says, don't turn your phone on. Now it's hard for me sometimes, right? Or go to your phone, don't check your social media or email or whatever else. And he says, set up times for email. Now he's crazy because in the book, he's crazy. He checks email once a week. Thank you. I'm the only crazy one. I can get, maybe you want to only check it 3 or 4 times a day or something like that, but I can't fathom once a week. He probably has an assistant. He probably cheats. And so, I'm like, I couldn't check email once a week. I'd be miserable. But he says, it's boundaries, right? So whatever's best for you. You can set time limits on your social media. He says, turn off the TV. Now, I'm on the very end of Gen X. I'm like a year away from being a millennial. But he says, Gen Xers and boomers watch a lot of TV. With millennials, they don't watch as much TV, but they definitely use social media more. And so I act like a millennial because I don't watch. My wife can binge watch stuff. She gets mad at me sometimes because I won't sit down and watch it with her because I don't have the attention span. But I do like to watch. I will scroll through little fun videos, and if you're going to be on my phone, it's like cooking, fishing, and sci-fi shows. Right? It's just all, and I have to watch little 2-minute videos. I do that all the time. Way too much. Right? Do a single task in lieu of multitasking. How many of you grew up and one of your job requirements was to be good at multitasking? Like it was a thing, and now we know that multitasking is not very helpful because your brain can't focus on more than one thing at a time. And so it'll focus on one and you'll forget the other. Many of us have gone to do a task and walked into a room, and then what happens? You forget why you're in the room, right? Or that arm is getting old, I don't know. Walk slower. How many of you have a friend, and every time they go on vacation, his name's Ken, and my daughter's with him right now in Florida, but every time he goes on vacation, they call it Airport Ken. And Ken is on a mission. And when Ken goes, he is going 90 miles an hour because he can't wait to get on that plane. And I feel like, that's probably me most of the time. When I'm going somewhere, you can ask my wife, do I walk fast? I don't walk fast? Good, because a lot of people say I do. But I'm slowing down, this is good, right? I'm practicing what I preach. And so, but remember, to slow down, walk slower. Take a day alone for silence and solitude, right? That's a Sabbath thing. Take up journaling. How many of you journal? It's hard. It's hard for me, because I don't like to write, and I don't like to write more than I do, because I have to write a sermon every week. And I always tell people writing a sermon every week is like writing a 20 to 30 page research paper that you have to prepare every single week. And so I don't like to sit down and journal, although I've done it in time periods of my life, and it's very beneficial. He encourages that. Experiment with mindfulness and meditation. We will be doing that next week. That is the point of our sermon next week. Take long vacations. He said there's a trend right now where people are doing like short weekend things. How many of you like to get away for a long weekend? I like to do it. He says it's not bad, but he says, often when you take a vacation, I know this is true for me, it's usually day 3 before I'm actually slowing down. And if you have children, my wife and I have 4 kids, when you have children and you take your children with you, what is that? Is that a vacation or is that a trip? It's a trip, right? Now, I love my family. We always have a good time. But often, you're constantly doing something. Your kids are and it's good. I love that we have great memories. But it's important to remember that you need to rest and rejuvenate. And sometimes, you need to rest from your vacation. If you've ever come back from your vacation and been exhausted, that's what I'm talking about, okay? So he says take long vacations. A lot of my pastor friends who've been doing this a long time take a month off. Now, one of the perks that pastors get get is we do get a lot of vacation time. It goes 4 weeks a year of vacation, and then we get 2 weeks of like spiritual retreat where we get to go out and do stuff. And so my boss is always on me. She's always like, take all of your vacation. And I'm always that guy that might take half of it. It just depends on the year. And the last thing that he encourages everybody to do is to cook and eat at home. How many of you cook or eat at home at least once a week? Twice a week? 3? 4? 5? Now you guys are just lying. Okay. We usually food prep on Sundays, and then our family, every Sunday for lunch or dinner, we always have dinner as a family. We have it at our table. Now, we did it yesterday because it was my mother-in-law's birthday, so we smoked up some ribs and had lunch. But we try to sit around a table at least once a week. And when you're sitting around a table, we're called the table here, right? Because the table is the great equalizer. We're all eating the same food, and it has this ability to connect us in one way or the other. And so his argument is that fast food, one, is not good for us. We're pretty good about not eating fast food, but we do struggle sometimes to make food and to sit around a table together and eat. He says making that time is really important. And the statistics in America is, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, we always ate around the table. Fast food was just emerging back then. And for the last 60 or 70 years, there's been a gravitation away from sitting around a table and eating it. He says one of the best ways to live a simple life and to slow down is to make your food and to eat it. Now, he's not saying take out. He's saying there's something about the process of making your food. Last night we had a couple of friends over, and they were having a rough week. And it's a friend of ours. They go to church here. She's moving into a new office. They're remodeling the office, and just they have a lot of life going on. And so we were going to go to their house. And we don't want to cook. We don't want to do anything. I was like, come to our place. He's like, all right, what are we going to have? Now, if you've ever had a meal with me, I love to make Italian food. And I can't just make something simple. And so I was like, we're going to have, what do we have? Chicken bucatini with a lemon, cream, basil, tomato sauce, right? All from our garden, because we have a garden at home. And he replies back to me, he says, you're insane. Why do you do stuff like this? And when it comes down to it, I love to cook. I love to cook for people. I love to have people over to our house. And I love to do things like that. And reading this book, it reminded me that is one of the simple things that we can do. Maybe you're not a cook, that's fine. Just go marry one. My wife married a cook, so we're good. And she likes to bake, I like to cook. And these are the things that remind us that life needs to be slower than the pace that we are living in. That we need to take intentional steps in living a simple life. Now, Jesus often believed in a very simple life, right? He did and said crazy things like, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will take care of itself. Now, when I hear things like that, I'm like, Jesus, that gives me anxiety. How many of you live your lives not worrying about tomorrow? Probably none of us, right? Rowan, you're lying. Okay, maybe you're not. He's actually pretty cool and chill. He may actually do that. I'm always thinking about the next thing and tomorrow. Anxiety is worrying about the future. And I'm one of those people that I am constantly thinking about the future. And then some of you might get stuck in the past, right? And our faith and our spirituality is the thing that pulls us into the present, that pulls us into now. So in the slowing down process of all this, is so that we can be present and there for the people that are currently around us who love us and want to be there with us. And it's easy for us to forget that, to spend time worrying about maybe the life that we've lived, or worrying about the life that we haven't lived yet. That's often the two extremes of that coin. And Jesus is constantly reminding us, he's like, listen, look at the lilies in the field, look at the birds in the air. They don't worry about those things, yet they are living a great life. And he encourages us to live the same way. And so when we get to Matthew, so it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the New Testament. In the book of Matthew, Jesus is teaching, and he's traveling like he often is. And he has this. He's teaching the people, he's praying, he gets after the scribes and the Pharisees. And the scribes and the Pharisees are the ones, they were like the attorneys or the experts of the law or the religious elites. So all of those would have been the same person. We would call them a Pharisee or a Sadducee. And so he's often hard on them because they thought that if they memorized all the laws, right? When Jesus is born, there's like 700 plus laws. We start with 10 commandments, right? We all know those. And then by the time Jesus was born, 700 and some odd laws. And so these people, these Jewish people, thought if they could memorize those laws, and if they knew them well enough, that they were good people. They thought it made them better versions of themselves. Now, I'm not against that. We need rules, but it is impossible to write a rule or a law to make somebody a better person. To be a better person, you have to want to be a better person. And rules and laws usually only protect other people, right? Like don't steal, don't cheat, don't, all of these don't. What's interesting about the Sabbath commandment is it's a proactive commandment. It invites us to do something that is good for us, that recharges us. Okay, so Jesus is in one of those moments. He's traveling from town to town. He's teaching these people. And he says this. He prays and then he says this. He says, "Come to me, all you are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." I don't know about you, but that sounds really good to me. I am often weary and burdened. He says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Now, when I read that, and I hear my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now, for those of you who don't know, a yoke is something that goes around a horse or a donkey or an ox or a bull or a cow or something. And it was something that took the weight of what they were pulling and it distributed it evenly so that it made the thing that they were pulling or carrying easier to pull. So that's what a yoke is. And in Jesus' day, the religious elite thought that their yoke wasn't easy. So they thought their job to make things, to be able to explain to people and describe them what was going on, meaning what was in their Bible, which would have been the Old Testament, or the law and the prophets, they would have memorized those things and then tried to tell people them, and they thought they were really cool for that, right? They could recite Isaiah, or they could recite Daniel, or they could recite the Torah, right? So their yoke, the thing that they were trying to live, was very burdensome and it was very complicated. Now imagine trying to memorize 700 plus rules and then to live those out in your life. That might be a little bit difficult. So when Jesus says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light," what he's saying is, my way of life, the way I'm teaching you, looks much different than you've heard it in the past. You've heard the way of life is about following these rules and doing these things and memorizing scripture. And what I'm saying is that the most important thing is to love people. So my yoke is actually easy. The way I'm inviting you to live is much easier. Eugene Peterson has a translation of the Bible called The Message. Have you ever heard of the Message Bible? It's my favorite version of the Bible. And I always tell people, if you're new to the Bible or if you haven't read it in a while, the Message or the Voice are two translations that are very easy to understand. And I like the way that he translates this because it's a little different than a traditional translation. He said, "Are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you burned out on religion?" You don't have to raise your hand, but I'm guessing there's some people in here that have been burned out on religion. How many people have been hurt by faith, by Christianity? He says, "Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." So for me, when Jesus is saying this, what he's inviting us to do is that the life that we are to live is not complicated. Now, it's difficult to stay on the path, right? So our path, your path, Steve, is different than my path, right? Our paths are not the same. And a lot of us were told growing up that there's some destination that we're supposed to arrive at. And some people would describe that as being saved, right? Or it's about a place we go when we die. But the word salvation and the word healing are actually the same root word. So when we're talking about our path and the place we're going, it just means that we're on a path that we're healing from the hurt and pain we've experienced, and then we're helping others along that path. And sometimes we deviate from that path. That word is harmatia. It means to deviate off the path or to miss the mark. That word harmatia is translated as sin. And so when you hear the word sin, a lot of us have a reaction to that. Oh, sin, that's a bad thing. When really what it means is just the struggle we have in our everyday life and our everyday path, that we need to stay on that path. And what Jesus is saying is that path doesn't have to look very complicated and difficult. that path should be easy, and it should be through the lens of love, and it's not about following all of these different rules. And so he says, listen, that might look like a yoke, and that should be the thing that we're pulling with us, our burdens, our struggles, our pain, our unrest, our hurriedness, that doesn't have to be so complicated. And if we can slow down and live a much simpler life, then life is actually going to look like life. And that if we want salvation, yes, I believe there's an afterlife, there's a heaven, but salvation is about here and now. Salvation is about living our life in such a way that it's so simple and so easy, and that we're inviting people to be a part of that. And it looks positive, and it looks like love. But it's hard to do that sometimes. Sometimes our egos, sometimes our self, they get in the way, and it clouds our judgment, and we deviate from that path. Jesus is like, if you follow me, I can show you a different kind of way of life. I can show you a different kind of path. You've heard me say this before, but early followers of Jesus were not called Christians. They were all Jewish, and they were called followers of the way. It was about this new way, this new light, an easy, burden-free, light yoke kind of life. And this is the life that Jesus invites us into. When you came in, hopefully most of you got a piece of paper. I want to pull that little piece of paper out. When I come from the finance and construction world before I was a pastor. And so I got to do really cool projects like Sprint Center and Kauffman Stadium, Chief Station. Those were my projects when we were doing those probably 15 years ago now. And we would get together, and I was a general contractor. So I used to build, but before that I would build, like, back when Blockbuster was a thing, and Payless Shoes, and Bed Bath & Beyond, Taco Bell, KFC Pizza. I used to build all the stores, and we'd get together, and all the contractors would sit in the room. We were a general contractor. We'd sit in a room, and you were supposed to write down on a piece of paper, like, what your job was, right? So if you were a drywall guy, and you knew that in order to do your drywall, you needed a certain amount of time. And you would write that task down on a piece of paper. And then we had this big wall with a timeline. We knew when we wanted the job to end, and we knew what that date was. And somewhere in between there, your task was to be put on the wall. So we had like these sticky notes. We'd write down the task, and we'd shove them up on the wall. And we would generate a physical, visual picture of a schedule that we were going to work out for that project. And we'd get it up on the wall, and you'd see these big stacks, right, of overlap. And we had to go through, and our job as the general contractor was to manage everybody, to make sure that everybody could get and do their work at the same time. And so we had to start taking some of these stacks of tasks that stacked up, and we would have to move them around, or simply, we would eliminate some of the work. I want you to think of your life like that. Everybody every week has a list of things they need to get done. Honestly, on Saturdays, it's not off on my work list for my job, but I have a list of things I need to do around the house. Things to get done, right? House cleaning and mowing and house maintenance. And my poor wife has had a leaky faucet for 14 and a half years that I'm going to get to next Saturday. And so, right? Yeah. And so, I want you to think of the tasks in your life. And I want to do this exercise together because I think it's good that we have a visual representation. I want you to think of something in your life that maybe you could eliminate, that maybe you could get rid of. And if you're sitting in the front row, there's pins behind you in those seats. But if you're sitting the rest of the space in front of you, there should be a pin. If you're at home, just grab a piece of paper and a pen. And I want you to write that thing down of what you would like to eliminate from your life. Okay, be thinking of that and be writing it down. Because in the service, I want us to take those, and we're going to bring them up front, and we're just going to leave them at the altar. We're saying, we are ready to simplify our lives, and we're ready to get rid of something. And sometimes the act of that, of writing it down, crumpling it up, and throwing it in a bowl, that can help us in that journey. So think of that, write that down, rather than tell you a few more stories. Now, yesterday, it was a crazy week. My life, I like chaos. Anybody here like chaos? My wife does not. I see, yeah, chaos, that's where it's at. So I do like chaos. I like that hurriedness, but I'm learning in my life that it needs to slow down. Well, it was one of those weeks. Now, we had two dogs. See, I'm still saying we have two. We lost one almost 3 weeks ago. And so my other puppy, I say puppy, 12 tomorrow. he's been lonely because he's only known his little partner. Her name was Puggles. Yes, she was a Puggle. We called her Puggles. And she passed away a couple weeks ago, but she hasn't been around, and so he's been struggling because they slept together in this little bed, and they've been life partners their whole life. And so often now in the middle of the night, he starts whining and barking, and he never used to do this. And so I get up early, and 5 o'clock is about my time to get up. But my wonderful dog, Shadow, has been getting up at like 3:30 in the morning. This morning, it was 2:30 in the morning. And he's been barking and howling. I know it's because he misses his friend, right? He's lonely, and so my daughter's been trying to console him, and we were trying to, my wife doesn't allow any dogs in the bed, even though I would, but she doesn't let us do that. We've tried it, and it doesn't go well. And so I always feel bad, but he starts, he's been barking, so I've been getting up super early every day this week. And I'm one of those guys, if I lay down at 10 o'clock, I'm usually not asleep until like midnight. Now, it's probably because I'm like doom scrolling on my phone, right? But I just not getting a lot of sleep. And so my youngest daughter, she knows this, and I walk down, I have a few pictures, actually. I walk down, and I've done laundry the day before, and hold on, back up, go back. Go back.
Sorry.
You're good. So this is my laundry that I had washed and dried that was just sitting in the dryer, and I come down, and it's all folded on the counter. And go to the next picture. Now this is like 6:45 in the morning. My son was outside mowing at 6:45 in the morning. It's a good son, right? Now go to the next picture. So this was yesterday morning. You probably can't read it, so I'm going to read it for you. I think I am. It says, "Happy Saturday. Good morning, Mom and Dad. I slept with Shadow last night in hopes that you guys could sleep in. I also wiped down the counters, and I did the dishes, and I swept and mopped, and I took out the trash, and I can't read the next part. Oh, I folded your laundry, and I cleaned everything, in essence. I know you guys have had a long and stressful week, so I hope that this takes some stress off you and some stuff off your plate and allows you guys to sleep in and slow down. And hopefully you can enjoy your morning. I love you guys from, what does it say? Your best daughter ever." Listen, they all have, in my phone, my kids are listed. One is my favorite daughter, one is my best daughter, one is what's the other one? Oh no, best, favorite, and greatest daughter. And so, because they all make that claim that they are the favorite and the best. And if you have more than one kid, you know that it's just not true, but she did this for us, and honestly, I teared up yesterday morning, so that's what I come down to. It's been a very long week, and I come down to that, I'm like, oh, that's going to make the sermon tomorrow. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to end it with that, right? It's happy, and I'm like, you know what, if you know somebody that's stressed and having a rough time, help them out. You do something like this. And as I'm contemplating this yesterday morning, it occurred to me that maybe that's not how I end this sermon. Maybe there's more to say about this. Now, this next part is going to be a little emotional for me. Because I told you at the beginning, I'm not good at this. Right? I'm not good at slowing down. I struggle with being present. I'm always thinking about the next thing. And I have 4 kids. My youngest is almost 17. So I have 17, 19, 20, and 25. And actually, they all have birthdays the next few weeks here. The next week or so for some of them. And I haven't always been, a lot of their lives, I'm constantly moving. And I've missed volleyball games or dance recitals or soccer games. And I was the dad that was always doing something. I made it to most of them. But I wasn't around. I look back now and I wish I was around more. And you feel like that. And you have older kids where you're just like, I wish I was around. So if you're here and you have young kids, I do hope you hear this. Learn from my mistakes. Because I wasn't always the dad I wanted to be. And now that my kids are older, now I'm like, oh, I get why grandparents are so great. Now, as a grandparent, you get to be the parent you always wanted to be, but probably weren't when your kids were younger. And so I'm thinking about this, and my youngest, her siblings think that she's the favorite. She's not. And I tell her this all the time. I love you, but there's no favorites. But her siblings think she's the favorite. There's probably some reason for that. And that's because when they were younger and they'd come to me at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, like, I want to go do something, go take you somewhere. I'm like, no, I don't want to get up. I'm ready for bed, right? It's 9 o'clock at night, we're not going out. And my youngest, she's one of those that will come to me and be like, Dad, let's go do something. And here's what I've learned. When the other kids were younger, I would say no. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't, I'm like, I'm tired, and I would prioritize so many things over hanging out with my kids. Now, we did plenty of stuff, and I don't think I was a bad dad, but there were times in my life where I wish I would have made them more of a priority. I wish I would have said no to some things and said yes to the important things, like just hanging out with my kids on a random Tuesday night. And I've learned that lesson. And so with Kira, my youngest, she'll come to me, and sometimes I'll say no, and she just looks at me, she goes, I know you're going to say yes eventually, so she'll just keep bugging me until I say yes. And I've been saying yes. Like my wife and I were talking, I've been saying yes because I'm like, my youngest is 17. I've been a dad for 25 years. 25 years, more than half of my life, I've been a dad. And I don't know how much longer I'll get to go do stuff with her. So now when she asks me to go do stuff or go to Culver's at 10 o'clock at night, I go to Culver's at 10 o'clock at night. Because I don't know how much longer I'm going to get to do that. And I do it with the rest of them too, but they're gone all the time. And so I'm sitting here thinking about this. And when we were preparing for this series, I had mentioned to Shelley, I said, how do you know Cats in the Cradle? You know that song by Harry Chapin Carpenter, right? His wife Sandy wrote it. And I said, I really like this song, but I was like, there's not a chance in Hades that I could get through singing it. I remember hearing this song when I was 5 years old. Miss Kraft was my music teacher, and I was in kindergarten. And you ever hear a song and it just sticks with you your whole life? I'm 5, and I remember hearing this song as a kid. And it stirred something up inside of me. And maybe it was because my dad didn't come to all my basketball games. Right? My dad wasn't always around as much as I wanted him to be. And I remember at 5 years old listening to this song, and something welled up inside of me. And then I hear it from time to time, and I'm already crying. I'm just thinking of the lyrics. It's one of those songs that just speaks to my soul. And there's not a chance I could sing it. But I wanted to read the lyrics today, because I wanted to remind us. This song reminds us to slow down. And it'll rear some pain in your life, maybe, if you have some of those regrets, or maybe some of those things you've been through. But I want to read these lyrics, and bear with me. Because I've been the dad that's not always made the best decision in my life. And his wife Sandy wrote this. It says, my child arrived just the other day. She came into the world in the usual way, but there were planes to catch and there were bills to pay. She learned to walk while I was away. And she was talking, and before I knew it, and as she grew, she said, someday I'm going to be like you, Dad. You know I'm going to be like you. Then it has this weird refrain. It says, and the cat's in the cradle, and the silver spoon, the little boy blue, and the man in the moon. When you come home, Dad, I don't know when, but we'll get together then. And we'll have a good time. He goes on with his life and the story of his life. And he says, my girl turned 10 just the other day. Now he says it in the masculine. I have 3 girls and a boy, so I turn to the feminine. He says, my girl turned 10 just the other day. She said, thanks for the ball, Dad. Come on, let's play. Can you teach me to throw? I said, not today. I got a lot to do. She said, that's okay. And she walked away, but her smile never dimmed. She said, I'm going to be like him. Someday I'm going to be like him. Well, she came home from college just the other day. So much like a woman, I just had to say, girl, I'm proud of you. Can we sit for a while? She shook her head. And then said with a smile, what I'd really like, Dad, is to borrow the car keys. See you later. Can I have them, please? How many of you have heard that exact phrase from your kids? He says, I've long since retired and my daughter's moved away, and I called her up just the other day. I said, I'd like to see you if you don't mind. She said, I'd love to, Dad, if I could find the time. You see, my new job's a hassle, and my kid's got the flu, but it's nice talking to you, Dad. It's been sure nice talking to you. And as I hung up the phone, it occurred to me, she'd grown up just like me. My girl was just like me. I'm thinking of my son and my daughter, who I'm so busy I can't even take care of my own daughter, fold my own laundry, and they had to do it for me. And while I'm appreciative of that, there's a part of me that realizes that I've taught them to be like me. That I've taught them the unhealthy practice of always being in a hurry, of always trying to do the next thing, of always just fill in the blank. And I dream of a world where all of us could look at our kids and say, man, do better than us. Now, don't get me wrong, I think my kids are wonderful, and I want them to do better, but there are times in my life where I'm just like, when am I going to slow down? When am I going to say enough's enough? When am I going to say no to the things in my life that I shouldn't be doing and start saying yes to the things that I should be? To be more present, to participate in Sabbath, to renew, to love. And that's really hard. I wish I stood up here and I could tell you that I'm doing it right, but I'm not. I'm struggling with it. And if you are too, I want you to take a moment. I want you to think about that thing you wrote down. That thing that maybe, in the elimination of hurry in your life, maybe that's one thing that you could slow down just a little bit, to be just a little bit more present with those who love you. I have kids that love me, right? Isn't that great? I just wish sometimes I could be a better father and a better parent and a better husband to say, you know what? I'm going to make you a priority. I want to invite the band to come back up. And as they come up and sing this last song, I just want to take a moment. I want you to think about that thing you wrote down, that thing you're going to, band, come back up. Sorry, it's just you, sorry. I didn't see you. I was looking at the bell. Where are they? Okay. And I want you to take a moment. I want you to take a piece of paper, and you can crumple it, you can tear it up, you can rip it up, whatever else it is. And I just want you to leave it up here. And as we listen to the words of this last song, and as we look at our lives and try to eliminate that hurriedness, that craziness, as we take intentional steps, as we remove the unhealthy things, my prayer is that God will help you on that journey. Let's pray. God, thank you for the opportunity to just love, to be present, to be here with those who are important to us. God, help us to take your yoke on us. Help us to remember that it is light and that it is easy. Help us to simplify our lives. Help us to be able to remove the things that we don't need to be doing and to focus on the things that give honor and glory to you, but more importantly, to give honor and glory to those around us. That's the whole point, is that we love you by loving other people. Help us to remember to do that every day of our lives. God, this is hard. Be with us, give us peace, give us understanding, give us grace. God, may we do all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. I don't know if you saw my Facebook post yesterday, but I think that's so ironic what you shared up here. Did you see? I posted a photo of flowers and my dinner. Yeah. So when I say I haven't been taking my own advice about slowing down, I keep saying this phrase. I don't know if you guys do this, but I keep saying, I just have to get through this week. I just have to get through this week, and the next week it'll be better. Spoiler alert, I've been saying that literally the entire summer. So I'm a nurse practitioner. I do wound care, and I have my own patients that I see, but I also work on an ambulance on the side. And I'm a worship leader, and I'm the PTA treasurer. I have a lot of hats. So that's why, I've been working a couple of 24-hour shifts through the week, and it's been hard to slow down. I want to slow down, but I also want to serve my patients and care for people. So in all of this noise, I came home the other night to flowers that my husband got me and dinner that my brother made me. And he made enough so that I could take some to the station the next day for lunch. And it was just really sweet. And I think that's the proof is in the pudding, that it takes a village. And I'm just really thankful for the men in my life because they are keeping me afloat through some of these crazy shifts. But this next song, it's a Corey Asbury song. It's called The Prodigal Song. And it is about that noise and that disconnect. I don't know if you guys feel the same way that I do, but I I kind of get this like guilty, overwhelming, chaotic feeling through that noise, and I don't take that time to make the space for my Creator to just sit and to pray or to meditate, whatever it is that you do. So you're welcome to stand if you'd like. You can remain seated, but just listen to those words about the noise, and I hope through the week we again try to eliminate some of that. Faintly I remember your love song over me, but the further that I wander, the noise is deafening. Now the only thing I feel is how far you are away. In this distance now between us is driving me insane. Father, I miss you. My heart is ready now to follow the sound of your voice that echoes inside. Father, I'm desperate. I lost my way somehow. I follow the truth of your love back into the light. Lead me back home. Lead me back home. And I've traded trust for pleasure and diamonds for fool's gold. And I made the world my treasure, but I underpriced my soul. In a whisper through the numbness, a melody of hope. That love song I remember is leading me back home. Father, I miss you. My heart is ready now to follow the sound of your voice that echoes inside. Father, I'm desperate. I lost my way somehow. I follow the truth of your love back into the light. Lead me back home. Lead me back home. I'd never reach the gate before you come running to me. All the words I rehearsed for days, they just fall at your feet. No, I'd never reach the gate before you come running to me. All the years I threw away in one embrace are redeemed. Father, I miss you. My heart is overwhelmed. Here in your arms is where I belong, forever at home. Father, I love you. Nothing could take your place. You were the first, you'll be the last, love of my soul. Lead me back home. Lead me back home. Lead me back home. Lead me back home.
easy life, not a complicated one. May simplicity, may we be able to remember to remove the complicated things. May we truly love and live